7:36 here on the Big 550 KTRS. Senator Roy Blunt is with us. Always a pleasure. Good to have you here in studio.
Hey, good to be here.
You picked up your mail, right? Because you usually get your mail here. You're often so many times.
I am coming by often. I like it.
You want to touch on something interesting: food safety workers. Talk about that for a moment.
Well, under the so-called sequestration, there was going to be a problem where, just frankly, public safety people are not required to show up under the law, even though if there was no money available to run the government would say, okay, people who like border control, food safety, air traffic controllers have to show up.
Right. Essential workers.
Essential workers.
Right.
And I think the administration wants to make reducing any spending as difficult as they possibly can. And so if the food safety inspector doesn't show up from the Department of Agriculture, nobody can work at a meat, poultry, or egg processing facility. That's 500,000 people in the country, 40,000 people in Missouri.
So the one guy doesn't show up, none of them can show up.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so if that guy misses, if they say we're going to furlough that guy for 15 days between now and the end of the year, that means 500,000 people lose 15 days of pay between now and the end of the year. It's about $400 million.
Okay.
$400 million of lost pay that those families don't get. And Senator Pryor from Arkansas and I are the top Democrat and the top Republican on the Ag Appropriations Committee. We were able to make a transfer in our appropriations bill that is going to allow all those people to work, and that's a good thing. And then I'm going to try to get even a bigger piece of legislation passed that just simply says the essential workers have to show up no matter what your labor agreement was, no matter what happens. If you're having to cut a line item and reduce spending there, that can't impact the workers that are essential for public health and safety. The people that you say if it's really bad weather day, you have to come to work anyway.
Right.
Those are the people that I have to come to work no matter what.
I know it's not a very sexy topic, and I know a lot of people are talking about cutting spending, but you have a government agency at the post office that is begging to be cut, and nobody will cut it. How come it's so hard to cut the post office, but it's easier to cut the defense budgets and all these other food safety programs, but nobody wants to cut the post office, and they're begging to be cut?
Well, it's obviously never been easy to cut any of these, and if we hadn't gotten the spending cap put into law for 10 years on the discretionary side of the budget, we wouldn't be cutting anything right now.
Right.
It would be, oh my gosh, we can't cut that. On Saturday delivery, they say they're still going to deliver packages. It just seems to me if you're not competitive, you don't do things that make yourself less competitive. And if you're going to be out delivering packages, why wouldn't you want to be out delivering the mail? So we'll see what they decide to do.
Are you in favor of cutting back Saturday delivery?
I am not.
You're not in favor of it?
I am not.
All right, good. The world is talking about gay marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You came out, Claire McCaskill came out and changed her mind on it and said that she's in favor of it. You put out a statement saying that you're against gay marriage, you're in favor of the Defense of Marriage Act, but you're for some type of other legal protection for gay marriage. Talk about that.
Some kind of civil union or something. I don't have any problem with that.
Right.
People want to enter into some kind of civil contract that allows them to have health care decision making. People do that all the time anyway, so why not be able to do that with someone of the same sex that you're committed to? I just think it may, we've got hundreds of years of law, maybe thousands of years of law that's been designed for a reason to protect this fundamental unit of our society, which was marriage between a man and woman. I'm not eager to see that change just because people have decided it's the sort of the cause of the moment.
The fact that Senator Blunt is for civil unions, have you moved on this?
I don't think so.
You've always been for
I
some
think
type
I
of
have
civil
always answered that question that way, that, if people want to have these kinds of civil understandings, civil unions, but the specific protections in marriage have always been designed to protect the family, to protect whichever of the partners appear to be in the weaker of the positions as they enter into that partnership, and so I'm not changing my view on that.
The argument, one would say, is as a conservative, I don't want government telling two consensual people what they want to do. If they want to get married, by golly, the government doesn't have a right to tell them they can't get married.
I don't think that's ever been the conservative argument, and this is not something that just came up last week.
Sure.
There are hundreds of years of this discussion And there may have been a debate at some time about whether women in a marriage had rights to manage their own property if something happened to their husband. But that law was changed, and it should have been changed. And that's how this has developed over time. I think Senator McCaskill said her views have evolved on this, and mine haven't. I thought it was interesting yesterday when I was asked that question in St. Louis. I was actually wanting to talk about, and we were at the Volpe Meat Company, which is over 100 years old, a St. Louis company founded by an Italian immigrant in 1902.
And great meat, by the way.
And great products. Right. 151 people work there. The Post-Dispatch story in an unrelated news conference. We're talking about whether 500,000 people get to work or not, as opposed to sort of a Supreme Court discussion about what the Supreme Court might decide. I guess that's what the nexus is for having this discussion. But my guess is that Missourians are nowhere close to changing state law. And if that happens, it'll happen in Jefferson City. And I don't think Missourians are anywhere close to changing laws to allow gay marriage in our state, but might very well be able to redefine the kinds of agreements that people can have when they decide they want to make a commitment to each other.
You're absolutely right. The latest poll I read this morning in the state of Missouri, I want to say 36% are in favor of some type of gay marriage, but the majority, the 57% are against any type of gay marriage. Mm-hmm. But the world's talking about this, so I have to ask you about it. Is there, because a couple of politicos this morning mentioned this, there's almost a feeling like the Republican Party is almost hoping the Supreme Court overturns it, therefore taking Republicans off the hook going forward and not making this a political issue in future elections.
Maybe so. The Defense of Marriage Act is 20 years old. Right. President Clinton signed it. What was considered fundamental 20 years ago, you better think very carefully before you decide, hey, it's sort of the moment. Let's just kind of toss all that aside. And it was there for some reason, but we don't want to think about what the reason was. There is a reason for hundreds of years of law that defined marriage and protected two people who entered into that agreement for the length of that marriage.
Never dull when Senator Roy Blunt stops in. Anything else we need to touch on before we let you go?
Well, I think I'm optimistic that this Budget Control Act, these spending caps, I think are going to get us back to where we're going to be debating the priorities for the country again. The Senate hadn't passed a budget in 4 years until last week. Right. Until last weekend. The Senate in 6 years hasn't really passed the appropriations bills like you're supposed to, where you bring a bill to the floor, debate the priorities for the Department of Defense. The House does the same thing. Then you get together and you agree on a bill you send to the president. I think we're going to get back to doing that. And I really believe that the Budget Control Act has 10 years of really good consequences for the country.
The budget in the Senate passed 50-49. Where did you vote on that?
Oh, I voted no.
You voted no?
On the majority. It wasn't a good budget. It was a budget that raised, actually, a bunch of Democrats didn't vote for it either. That's right, why it was 50-49. Right, yeah. There are 55 of them, and it was 50-49. So, right. When they don't have a budget that their own side would vote for, it's unlikely that I'm going to vote for it. But it was a good thing to do. It was good to go through that exercise and frankly, obey the law. I sponsored legislation in the last Congress that said if you don't have a budget, you don't get paid. And we actually finally got that passed in January of this year. And suddenly, for the first time in 4 years, there's a budget. The last time the Senate passed a budget, nobody had an iPad because it hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah, but they're a bunch of senators, so they're not quick for this technology thing, though.
Maybe nobody still has an iPad. Yeah. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
That's exactly right.
Senator Roy Blunt, always a pleasure. Go pick up your mail, and we'll see you down the road.
Good to see you. Be back soon, I hope.
You got it. Senator Roy Blunt with us, 7:45 here on the Big 550 KTRS.